The critical minerals, rare earths deal is absolutely necessary and pivotal.
3 years after Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine, and the Trump administration is nearing a deal with the Eastern European country that allows the US to mine some of its natural resources.
It will recoup American tax dollars. We've funded more than $300 billion to Ukraine's national defense. It will provide these very critical minerals and rare earth minerals to the United States of America for our own national security.
In exchange, and subject to negotiations with Ukraine, and presumably Russia and Europe, the US would create some kind of reconstruction fund and provide assurances on security.
My question will be very direct: if the United States will stop support or not. If it's not aid, can we buy weapons directly from the United States?
Well, I'm not going to make security guarantees beyond very much. We're going to have Europe do that because it's in, we're talking about Europe as their next door neighbor.
Whether negotiating with Russia or Ukraine, the Trump administration is, like it said it would, moving quickly.
There is a mutual readiness to work to restore relations and gradually solve a colossal amount of systemic strategic problems.
Mr. Trump is also dealing with Europe, including visits to Washington from French President Emmanuel Macron and the UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer.
We shall now begin the voting process.
They didn't get off to the best start after the US voted with Russia against a UN resolution sponsored by Ukraine and European nations calling out Russia for its invasion of Ukraine 3 years ago.
I would rather not explain it now, but it's sort of self-evident, I think.
Whether Mr. Trump's approach is part of some master plan that he's keeping close to his chest, we'll see. But before negotiations had even begun, Mr. Putin had been offered much of what he wanted: that Ukraine cannot join NATO, that there be no return to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders, and of course, no US troop involvement.
Is there any scenario, whether it's the rare earth minerals agreement, whether it's this, force that the Europeans want to stand up, any scenario in which US troops are on the ground in Ukraine?
No.
But while the Trump administration is right to put pressure on Europe to increase defense spending,
President Trump has called for 5%.
What may be a tactical suggestion that the US is somehow going in another direction, that Europe is on its own, is troubling.
The United States will no longer tolerate an imbalanced relationship which encourages dependency. Rather, our relationship will prioritize empowering Europe to own responsibility for its own security.
We think it's an important part of being in a shared alliance together that the Europeans step up while America focuses on areas of the world that are in great danger.
Ukraine is in a very precarious and tough situation now, and that Ukraine is turning heavily towards its European allies to get increased support.
Only this week, during the French president's visit to Washington, Mr. Macron was quick to push back against Mr. Trump's suggestion that any money Europe had given to Ukraine would be paid back.
Europe is loaning the money to Ukraine. They get their money back.
No, in fact, to be frank, we paid 60% of the total effort, and it was through, like the US, loans, guarantee, grants, and we provided real money, to be clear.
If you believe that, it's okay with me.
Sarcasm aside, and irrespective of who you believe, Mr. Trump's national security advisor described any potential mineral deal as a return on investment.
A reformulation of how the United States provides aid, a partnership with Ukraine economically and their critical minerals, and really reformulating that so that the American people can see a return on this massive investment they've made.
And that, in Mr. Trump's eyes, is what this is really all about.
Cutting this mineral deal with Ukraine, this is very clever, very cagey, because we're going to get some money back, but it also shows Putin that Ukraine is going to be working with the U.S. and with the West. It's a cagey move by Trump.
I mean, that's what I do. I do deals. My whole life is deals.